We use the Alida platform to first create and execute a data acquisition workflow to take data related to the separate transactions provided by PostLian and store them within an HDFS cluster as CSV files, configuring all the relevant properties accordingly. Then, we created and executed a batch workflow consisting of several microservices for the training of AML model to identify frauds on separate transactions. The workflow is constituted by a part dedicated to data pre-processing. In particular, we transformed categorical data into numerical data. Generation and application of a k-means model to clusterize transactions into 3 groups. And at the end, a service providing the main central tendency measures of each feature grouped by cluster, and a parallel microservice, which makes use of the random forest classification algorithm to robustly retrain a model taking clustered data as input. This random forest model will then be used in a streaming workflow, labeling incoming transactions in near real time, and then visualizing and monitoring the outgoing data stream via the Visual Live component. Now we are going to see a preview of a cluster dataset using our internal visualization component. Here we see a few lines of the dataset that give us an idea of how the dataset is made up. Now we use the visualization component and select the convex huddle chart in order to show how data are clustered for a couple of features. As an example, we are selecting the IP address and our operation fields colored by clusters. For this features, we can see 3 distinct clusters. This approach therefore helps the analyst to identify and assign a meaning to each cluster, as well as to uncover useful information. Finally, we are now briefly going to display a summary of the cluster dataset, showing the central tendency measures calculated for each cluster. This information can help to identify among these groups those that represent fraudulent transactions, those that do not, and those transactions that represent suspicious transactions.